given the roadmap that Blizzard gave us for seasonal discovery, we're looking at a project that has a 14-month lifespan, more or less. Of course, they delayed phase 3. I don't know if that's going to make the whole project longer, but they delayed phase 4. They extended phase 3, I guess. But do you think 14 months, 12 months, even 18 months is a reasonable time frame for the entire Classic Plus? Do you think it should be longer? How do you feel about the whole lifespan of the project?
But if you're asking how long Classic Plus should be, I think like endless. But the initial from Molten Core to Nax, I think should be 12 months. To give people time to level up. There should be no level bans from the beginning. You should start the game, load into it, get to level 60, spend 3 months in Molten Core, 3 months Blackwing Lair, 1 week in AQ40, and then like 3 months in like Nax. And then essentially from there it should be new content, fresh content in every 4 to 6 month cycle. So we should still have that initial vanilla lifespan. So essentially a fresh that's with a lot of changes in this context, but and then Classic Plus afterwards.
So you're saying no fresh?
What did AQ40 do to you, man?
I like to pug a lot, and AQ40 pugging without GDKPs, I'm not looking forward to it. With GDKP, sure, AQ40 is fun. All the whales you can carry, you can make your gold, but without GDKPs, no one's going to pug AQ40 correctly. It's going to be miserable. That's just my opinion. Like you guys can disagree with me, but like if you've ever pugged AQ40 without a GDKP.
But what about AQ20? Yeah, it's so funny. I still got no idea what I do every time I go there, but we kill the bosses, they die. So I think I'm doing alright. So Hammer, do you think it's too long?
For Classic Plus, I think pretty much what Ebonheart said, right? Go through the regular Classic lifespan. But then yeah, after that it should be endless. Like this should go on for years. Just like old school RuneScape. Like there should just be an endless amount of content, like every few months, voted on by the community that comes out, right? Like how good would it feel to be like playing a classic that you know isn't going to end, right? Like we've known every time that we're going to the next expansion, then you end up in Cataclysm. We don't know what's going to happen after Cataclysm, right? Is there going to be mop? There's not going to be mop. There's always this like question of like, and that deters a lot of people from playing. And then on the other hand, you have these seasonal, right? We had Season of Mastery, which was alive for like 3 days, and it was cool for 3 days.
That's a
and
stretch.
then Season Discovery, which was a major step up from Psalm, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it's still seasonal. You know it's going to end, right? Even if you get to take these characters and move them to like an evergreen Season of Discovery server, we all know how that's going to end up, right? So I think that we have been playing versions of Classic that are so temporary for so long now that having a live, like permanent version of Classic would feel like next level awesome to me. It just needs to not end, right? It can literally go on forever.
I wasn't expecting that answer from you guys at all. I am a bit of a fresh hound. I come from private servers. That was like basically the way WoW was cemented into my mind at this point over the decades. I don't know, Telo, do you feel that way?
I 100,000% feel that way, because here's the thing. The one thing I hate the most is walking away from a character that I'm so attached to and then just reliving the memories in my bed and like how I was, once a great warrior in TBC with Deep Thunder and Eye of the Storm smacking people up in PvP and just having such a blast. And now no more hammer, but we got a hammer inside as a paladin. but I to continue what Hammer was saying, because I was actually gonna have something else to say, but what he said was so good, and it opened my mind, because it was like, that's exactly it, is continuation. And I think that when you have a game that is always continuing, it's no longer this like, all right, the server's being cut off, it's being shut down, and now you have to start anew and rinse and repeat. You've already done this. Some people get turned off from that idea. It's like, dude, I remember the classic experience. I don't want to have to rinse and repeat every single thing I just did 20 or 30 times in my lifespan. I mean, it is what it is for some people, but I think the continuation of a server, or even just the classic game itself, is perfect. And I think a lot of people want that more or not, with things to do within that game, within that mode. And even like what were the conversation of the time span thing, like you guys were talking about, where like, having this come out at a certain phase or a certain month or a certain day. I don't mind that at all. I've always agreed with the development of games being taken care of from many other development studios for many other games that delay their games because they want to work on them and they want to put more quality of life into the game and more things to do for the players and have to wait for that delay rather than not have that delay. It comes out too quick. It's unfinished. We have an issue. What happened with phase 3? Way too delayed. People were dying out. The games was getting burnt out. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, Sunken Temple, my guild was over it.
Decimated.
And it was decimated amongst the fact that Sunken Temple had no teleporters, but BRD and or BFD, excuse me, and Nomer had teleporters.
And twice the trash, don't forget that.
And ST had twice the trash. So I'm just saying, long story short, if you give more development time to Classic Plus, a continuation, like Cameron was saying, a lot of the creativity designs with like exploring new zones, like Eben was saying, especially with like the farming stuff, like Jerome and we were all talking about before. I think you can really have something special with a continuation of a constant Classic Plus world, and then the community events that would come out of it would be endless content. To be honest, for everybody.
Okay, Jerome, you gotta back me up on this one. You do not want fresh either.
Okay, so I want both, and I know that's going to make it even more confusing, but I like the idea of the era that we have right now being like consistently updated every like 3 months or something new coming out. So you have to keep that going, and then also having fresh servers, because I've always thought this should be like Path of Exile. Every 3 to 6 months we have a really hype new launch, and maybe I'm selfish for it, but I'd love to have just a fresh launch every so often and have something like where everybody's coming back to the game. So I kind of want both, which is kind of confusing, I guess.
No, I get that. That makes sense.
I
I mean,
agree, actually.
Both,
Yeah, there's a way they could like definitely fit that in, because you are right. Yeah, fresh is a massive thing for classic players, right? Everyone loves a fresh. So if you did have this like permanent Classic Plus going, I'm sure there's a way they can incorporate like just launching a new fresh server that like for people who want to just, do that every 12 months or 18 months, whatever they want to do. And then you could transfer to your main server or whatever. Maybe there's some incentive to like make a fresh character, right? Stuff like that. Like, yeah, I actually agree with you on that, Jerome. Like, I think it'd be kind of cool to have both.
I think
And they could connect together, right? You could have the fresh servers then move into the ongoing server eventually, and it's like now you have a reason to keep playing.
That's
Yeah.
the
I
EverQuest
think
model,
that's
yeah.
actually
Almost like
think
those
that-
fresh servers are a season built into Classic Plus, right?
Exactly.
Like
That's-
that, yeah. That server is like a season. So if you make a fresh character on that server and you play through to the end, you get some rewards on the main server, right? Like outside of that season. And you could transfer your seasonal character over to the main server as well. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think the best way they could do it, in my opinion, at least, and you guys can like either agree or disagrees, but keep Classic Plus going, and then like every 3 years trigger a class. Well, not every 3 years, but let's say every 24 months, there's a new fresh season happening, so everybody can just take a break, level their characters. Moment it ends, at any point you can just be like transfer back to the Classic Plus server, and you're out. You're now back in Classic Plus, and if you want to keep playing fresh, that can probably continue into TBC. Wrath of the Lich King for people that want to do that. Then those characters can then transfer to MOP or Legion or whatever the hell is happening at that point, Classic at that point.
And
that way everyone's happy.
Yeah. And to continue with that, like those continuation of those seasons can be like realms inspired from like, I guess what people call like the flavor of the month, where like these realms are based on, either old ideas or uncut ideas or even ideas that we already had, like, whether through TPC, through Wrath, through Legion, or like poll related things, which I think is a big thing, especially what Hammer said too about like, us voting on things, because I think one of the biggest key things that I really wish Blizzard did more was more polls and more votes, so we are more transparent about things, and then at least we can get more votes for Classic Plus talking about this. I know they did the whole like, survey thing. I saw the interviews as well, which they were amazing. And just having more discussion is going to get to the key where we want to be. And just like what Jerome was saying, as an old school Diablo player like myself, who's going to be transitioning eventually, with Path of Exile stuff, because I really want to explore that game as well. I like the idea in those games where, you go through the, you have your eternal realm, you have your seasonal realm, and then your seasonal realm breaks into your eternal realm, which is like your endless realm, so to say. So that would be your Classic Plus continuation. Then, on the other side, it would be your seasonal realm of what you would be doing things. So yeah, I just like you guys, I like that idea.
I like that. Maybe the remix technology could play a role on that.
Yeah,
Possibly.
exactly.
Remix was fun. I'm not gonna lie. You know, that's a side
I
thing.
enjoyed
but
it.
I enjoyed remix. I enjoyed it.
I was gonna say, yeah, and again, like why I agree with Jerome and what Tello just said is because kind of going back to I think what I said earlier that like one of the main parts about classic was the leveling, right? So if you're at that point of end game forever, that goes away. So you kind of do need fresh every once in a while.
Absolutely. That was I'm gonna play advocate, the devil's advocate here because I realize I am alone in front of the Legion. I'm gonna make my last stand here. I think we need to reset the game every so often because why is it that it is so hard for people to get into retail nowadays? I think the problem with WoW after going for so long, and it is a problem that happens with almost every other MMO actually. If you are like a retail people, like how many people in retail play because they like mounts? Like how does it feel to know that like 30% of the mounts in the game you're never gonna be able to get? I think like if we want to keep growing the game, we would need to get to reset and give people like a chance for a fresh start every so often. I think moving the levels and giving people like a gear reset is not enough.
I get what you're saying, but that's the reason we want horizontal progression in Classic Plus, the continuity, because that's when vertical progression happens, people can't catch back up or can't catch that skill back up as easily. But with horizontal progression, there is a skill cap. At a certain point, you cannot get better at the game. Even if you min-max down to the finest, tiniest detail, the new player can log into the game, watch some guides, and just play a bunch, and they can eventually catch up. Whereas in retail, that's much harder because of the vertical progression. But if it's horizontal, as Classic and Classic Plus should be, that wouldn't be there. People would always be able to catch back up. Sure, you might not be able to get some mounts, or you might not be able to get some titles or whatever, but the horizontal progression is what makes it Classic Plus, in my opinion. So that's my counter to your counter to the original point, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you that if I were to make an MMO from the ground up, I would probably aim for what you're saying with the horizontal progression. And that's basically the reason that I know it works is because Albion Online is basically based on the horizontal progression. Well, I don't know if you could call it horizontal. The talent tree is a circle, but you can go all around the circle with a single character, essentially. My problem with like infinite horizontal progression, I think there is a limit to it because of the class system of the game. Like as long as we got like locked classes for WoW, and you know, you guys might be open to the idea of like changing like the way classes work in WoW. I don't know, I am not close to the idea, but I think we're limited by like what a single character can do.
I'm not objective to the idea of like class changes in ways of fantasies we've never seen before. For every single spec, I don't. You know, there was a. You know, just to make an example of it, there was a talk in Paladin community about possibly seeing, you know, what if Paladins did something different, you know, with like dual wielding hammers and they scaled with the Crusader. If there was a different way of playing, like we've never seen like Paladins in Classic or SOD or anything else of you know, older vanilla ever do that, you know. So I'm not opposed to you know, seeing classes take different avenues. I know there was always the troll thing about like, you know, Smite Priest. You know what I mean? Like with daggers, right? And like, you know, a dagger priest play style. But even, you know, other things can happen with many other specs. So I'm not opposed to the idea of them experimenting. But once again, it all goes back to being transparent and having polls with the community before they do so. Maybe showing some concept art, maybe showing some footage. And, you know, one thing that I like that a lot of other studios do as well, especially something that the Diablo studio, even though I don't play that game anymore, but they have Twitch streams where they constantly have streams talking and showcasing their game. And I would really love to see that from Blizzard, especially if every couple months, if they're gonna, like, let's say in a year from now, figure of speech, give it some change, right? If we get to the point where they're gonna say Classic Plus is coming out, I would love to see some streams and, you know, possible, maybe if we get some inside footage every couple months of them having more and more streams with the community and talking about it, you know.
I agree. It's kind of crazy how behind Blizzard is with the rest of MMOs. Like Final Fantasy OGP is everywhere all the time. Like granted,
Yeah.
Agred is a lot of progress in that direction. That man is putting in work in the media thing. But like you look at Albion, they got an official stream every month, and long before that, 2012, we're talking about Dragon's Prophet, they had an official Twitch account, and it was the same deal. They had like a monthly show. Blizzard needs to do way more on that.
Bro, I've seen so many development streams of Ashes of Creation. I feel like I made the game at this point. Like I must have seen like 20 hours of it. That's like almost too much.
Yeah.
It's like, could you just stop, just make the game at this point? And I think modern game development, they should give us a peek behind the curtain, and that lets us have feedback. Like they changed a lot of stuff based on those streams. So
Imagine if they did that with, for example, Phase 3, when they were designing incursions. They were showing us what incursions were meant to be, hypothetically, on the once-a-month dev stream. And people could have been like, yo, I love the enthusiasm, I love what you're trying here, but that's too good. Maybe dial it back a bit, and just that little bit of feedback right there could have helped.